Welcome back. In part 5, it's the day of public exposure. Margaret faces a neighborhood, and her empire is about to fall apart in front of everyone. If you missed parts 1 to 4, make sure to watch them first to understand how we reached this explosive moment. The day had arrived. Months of careful planning, patience, and subtle psychological strategy had built up to this single moment. Margaret still clung to her clipboard and her aura of authority, but the neighborhood's collective courage had grown too strong to ignore. Today, everything she had relied upon, fear, intimidation, and silence, would be shattered before the eyes of every resident she had ever dominated. The community hall was packed beyond capacity. Every seat filled with neighbors who had endured her unfair fines, her selective enforcement, and her invasive patrols. Their stories, once whispered in fear, now swirled in the air like electricity, creating a palpable tension. Margaret sat at the head of the table, visibly tense, her clipboard shaking slightly in her hands. She tried to project confidence, but even she could feel the energy shifting. I remained calm, dossier in hand, knowing the timing was perfect. First came the questions, ones that would chip away at her authority. Neighbors asked about missing financial reports, delayed board elections, and why fines were enforced inconsistently. Margaret's answers were sharp at first, defensive, but they quickly faltered under the relentless scrutiny. Each question exposed cracks in her carefully maintained image. Then came the evidence. I presented financial documents showing unaccounted for funds, payments to fictitious vendors, and personal transactions she had executed without board approval. The room reacted with gasps, murmurs, and incredulous looks. Margaret tried to interject, but every attempt was drowned out by the overwhelming proof laid before her. Next, I revealed her own violations of HOA rules, extensions without permits, ignored guidelines for yard and porch maintenance, and selective fines imposed on neighbors while exempting herself. The faces of the residents reflected both shock and vindication. Finally, the ultimate proof, video footage of Margaret trespassing onto my property late at night, flashlight in hand, clipboard recording every detail. The room erupted. For the first time, Margaret's composure crumbled entirely. Her face went pale, hands shaking, and her voice faltered as she attempted to regain control. But it was too late. Her empire, which had relied on fear and silence, had been exposed to the light of truth. The neighbors, once divided, were now unified in their outrage. The board, which had long been silent under her reign, now took decisive action. An emergency vote removed her from the presidency on the spot. The motion passed unanimously. Margaret, who had ruled with absolute control for over a decade, was stripped of her power publicly and irreversibly. The fallout extended beyond the HOA. Local authorities, alerted by the financial evidence in the documented harassment, began investigations into potential fraud, tax discrepancies, and misuse of funds. Margaret's personal and professional life faced unprecedented scrutiny. Letters, fines, and intimidation were replaced with legal notices, audits, and inquiries. Her once commanding presence in the neighborhood had been reduced to whispers and stunned silence. Outside the meeting hall, the neighborhood breathed collectively for the first time in years. Lawns and decorations appeared freely, vehicles were parked without fear, and residents spoke openly, laughing and sharing stories without worry of fines or reprimands. The community, once fractured by fear, had reclaimed its agency. Though the day was a triumph, I knew this was not the end of Margaret's attempts to cling to control. People like her do not surrender gracefully. Yet the evidence was overwhelming, the neighborhood united, and the damage to her reputation permanent. Every unfair fine, every invasive letter, every moment of intimidation had been vindicated through her public downfall. By the end of the day, Margaret was no longer the ruler. She was a cautionary tale. Her fall served as a warning to anyone who believed that fear and authority could substitute for fairness and integrity. The HOA, once a tool of oppression, had been returned to the community.